Yo, what is cracking, everyone? This is your man Politic the King with PolitikdakingTV, and I have a video for you guys. I know a lot has been going on in the world with protest and COVID-19 and a lot of these things that are going on, but I specifically want to talk about the racial divide in America and the protests that have been going on in George Floyd. I really just want to make a quick point because I'll probably do a more in-depth video talking about a lot of these things. But, when I look at all the surrounding issues and the surrounding people, whether it's politics with the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, whether it's Black Lives Matter, whether it's just, all these different groups that advocate for certain things. A verse came to my head, a biblical verse, and I'm going to share that with you guys. And it is, boom, Psalm 118, verse 8. And it says, it's better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in man. I have been talking to family members. I have been talking to pastors. I've been talking to my brothers in the Lord. And the real thing that we've been saying is that, you cannot put confidence in man-made things. I'm not saying that my car isn't dependable or my house that I'm living in, doesn't have a decent foundation. What I'm saying is that, people are looking for solutions in the wrong things. For instance, a lot of people, as far as the conservative community, have Christian values, and there's conservative Christians, and a lot of people support the Republican Party because of the value system. But the Republican Party in itself is not going to save America from itself. The Democratic Party, they have more of what they would say liberal ideas, and they have ideas of free education and this equality, and people everybody has to agree, and you have to accept everything that everybody does. And in all actuality, that's not going to save America either. America's not going to be saved through a Republican Party or a Democratic Party or any other party that exists. So putting confidence in these systems that have really not been great systems from the beginning is just not going to work. If you look at the history of this nation, this nation was founded off of war. This nation was founded off of the backs of slaves. This nation was founded off of colonization. There was so much conflict in this thing, and this country has become what it is today. But there was a lot of injustice. There was a lot of horrible things that have happened in this country, and not just in America. If we look at South America, if we look at North America and Canada, there were some horrible things that happened to the native people of Canada. There were some horrible people that happened to the native people of South America. Whether it was, the Spanish conquistadors and all the other nations that went to go pillage and take things from the natives there and cultivate the land. So it's not, a political party or a movement is not necessarily going to solve things. Now, in that, I'm not saying I disagree with anybody protesting for police injustice or police brutality. I think there's a way of going about those things. But really, this verse points to putting your trust in God more than putting your trust in man-made things. I mean, honestly, whether I do side with some conservative Republican people or I side with some liberal Democratic people, it's not those things that are going to bring actual change in this country. It's people, confessing their sins and repenting of their sins and giving their lives to Christ, ultimately. Now, that can shape your political view. For me, I don't have a party. I just sort of vote my conscience, and I just move on from there. People are putting their faith in these things when they need to be putting their faith in God. I don't really care about Republican or Democrat or the system that we live in this country. I mean, it applies to me because I have to live in it. But if I live somewhere else, I would be dealing with a different political system. And whether that political system is righteous or unrighteous, we would have to deal with the issues at hand. But one of the flaws I do see in America is there's not consistent leadership. we're the country is so divided on racial lines and on just political issues that, for instance, we had 8 years of Obama, and Obama changed things. He legalized gay marriage. He did a lot of other things that were liberal that people on the other end of the spectrum disagree with, right? Now we have Trump, and Trump is changing things, and he's doing things, and now the liberal people are getting mad. And we're going to have this trade off of back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until, eventually the country just falls. That's just how I feel things are going to happen. I mean, as much as I am as a believer, if I looked at some good Christian conservative candidates that stayed in office and honored the laws of God, and we could consistently vote those people in, I think it would be a great thing for the country. On the other end, I don't see that happening all the time unless people wake up, unless people look at the real issues of right and wrong, and let go of their biases. I don't think the political system that we're in is going to save anything. I don't think it's going to redeem anything. I think there's going to be constant arguments and fights. There's going to be legislation that's passed, legislation that's struck down, and America was built off of the premise of, you have free speech. You can say what you want, and unfortunately, that's just going to lead to arguments, and we'll have to continue arguing it out until you know until the end of time type of thing. Somebody said that democracy fails, right, when the people become wicked. And that was a really good quote, because you got to think about it like this. If we vote people in, if we're voting bad people in, right, then eventually the country is going to fall, because it's going to become corrupt, and it's not going to have any integrity, and it's just going to shatter. So, getting back to my point here, putting trust in the Lord, the one thing about God is that God is our Savior. Like, Jesus is our Savior. He came to die for our sins. He came to redeem us of the guilt and the shame that we have. God is righteous, right? And the one thing that God does know is God knows the future. He knows what's going to happen in the future. So he's not surprised by all of these things that are happening right now. And we can put our confidence in God because God is completely righteous. The political system is not completely righteous. Black Lives Matter is not completely righteous. The Democratic Party is not completely righteous. These things aren't going to bear any fruit in the long run. But if we turn our face to God and allow God to be our president, allow God to be our ruler, allow God to be the one that helps us make decisions, then by that we can do something better in this country. So that's just really my point there. I know a lot of people are at political unrest, and they're thinking about all of these things that they can do. Whether people have pride in the United States, they're trying to make America great again, or they're trying to, like push all these agendas and stuff like that. But really, there was something that President Trump had tweeted or put on Facebook, and I know what he was talking about. He's talking about make America great again. And, like this, and that, all this stuff. And I was like, the one thing I remember, and I think it's a biblical verse, it says, pride cometh before the fall. If you want to put pride into a nation, pride into a flag, pride into your race, pride into all these worldly things, it's eventually going to fall. Like, this world is going to fall. There's going to be a judgment. Eventually it'll all come crumbling down. So if you're putting faith in the earthly things, or into a concept of America or a concept of a nation, you've really failed. But if you put your, there's something, and it's Matthew 6. I forgot Matthew 6. I think it's 15. I'm going to just go to it real quick because I think it makes a really good point on this. Actually, a really, really solid point. Just 1 second. It says, Matthew 6, verse 19. It says, do not lay up treasures for yourself on earth, where moth and rust consume, and where thieves break in and steal, but lay up for yourself treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consume, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And I think the good, thing about that verse is just saying that these things on earth will eventually perish, right? Like all of these concepts, racism, America, China, Russia, these things are going to fail us eventually. But God's kingdom is going to last forever, right? So if we're going to make laws on the earth, because God gave man dominion over the earth, right? We should be basing those things off of godly wisdom. We should be basing those things off of what God wanted us to do. Ultimately, as far as political systems are concerned, God never wanted a political system to rule us. He wanted to rule us. He wanted to be our father. He wanted to care for us. That's what God wanted. As far as political systems, they're in place in order to ensure justice and that there's not chaos. And I think those things are God instituted too. But ultimately, God wanted us to look to Him for wisdom, Him for righteousness, for Him for right and wrong. Just as much as is wrong because of the things that happen to black people, systematic racism, etc., because of the sins of white people and white people's ancestors and the government and the things that are established today. It's also wrong for people to burn down people's businesses, to beat people, and all of these other things that are going on. Like, it's equally wrong on both ends. So we have to look at it in the view that it's in. Wrong is wrong and right is right. And so while I do empathize and while I do sympathize with the people that are protesting George Floyd, and I think it's a grave injustice, not just him but others or whatever, it's equally wrong to go about things in a wrong way where we're harming others and killing others and other things are going on. So wrong is wrong and right is right. And in order for us to be a just nation, a just people, we have to look at things in that lens. Like, we can't excuse protesters because they're angry because of an injustice when they're protesting is also causing injustice and also causing evil and wrong. So this is your man Politik the King with PolitikdakingTV. This is my viewpoint. I hope you guys have enjoyed it, and I will have more videos in the future. So you guys take it easy. May God bless you, and the King is out. Peace.